Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. We are here today with Richard Lowe, who is a premium ghostwriter who left his role as Trader Joe's Director of Computer Operations to move to Florida, overcome preconceptions, procrastination, and the challenges of marketing as an introvert, writing over 100 books, 52 of them as a ghostwriter, on topics ranging from AI to memoirs. Through in-depth interviews that uncover his client's heart and soul, he crafts powerful messages that truly resonate with their audiences. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This will be fun.
Thank you for being on the show. Writing is always very interesting, especially when it comes to procrastination. So we'll dig into that in just a moment. But we do like to have an icebreaker on the show. And the question for you today is, which cartoon character do you resonate with the most and why?
Well, it'd have to be the Tasmanian Devil. That's an old Looney Tunes character, because the Tasmanian Devil definitely doesn't sit on his behind all day long. He's busy stirring up trouble and doing things and doesn't take anything from anybody. That would be kind of the way I think of myself. A little chaotic.
Yeah, I like that. I like that example.
He definitely does.
So that segues into my next question for you. How would you define procrastination, and what does it mean to you personally?
Well, I would define procrastination as you're waiting on something or you're putting off something that needs to be done. So you have a big goal in life, like say you want to go on a cruise to Antarctica. And that's been your lifelong goal, to see Antarctica. And it's something you really want to do, but you keep putting it off. You got all kinds of reasons why you put it off. But you never, then when you're in the hospital on your last days, you think, I should have gone on that trip to Antarctica because that's what I always wanted to do. And now it's too late. That's procrastination. I forgot what the second question was.
Oh, the second part of that was sort of, what does it mean to you personally, or has it touched you personally?
Oh, yeah. Now, I'm a book writer, and a book is a big project, whether I write it for somebody else or whether I write it for myself. And it is so easy to put it off. I used to do this a lot, where I think, I can just get started on this tomorrow. Put it off till the next day. Well, I have a schedule to meet. So if I keep putting it off, I then find out I have to really scramble really fast to get caught up. And I decided, that's just dumb. My schedule is 500 words a day per book I write. I tend to write between 5 and 10 books at a time. If I write 500 words a day per book, that's 10,000 words a month. But if I get behind, say by 2 weeks, because I'm, off watching YouTube or something, or TikTok, then I don't do 10,000 words in a month. That works into when I get paid. That works into me having to be stressed. The client might get upset. All kinds of side effects just because I put it off.
And we all know that there's no real silver bullet, and everybody's different. But especially in your line of work, what's been your secret sauce to overcoming procrastination?
Well, I put together a tickler system, or a calendaring system that tells me, okay, it's noon, it's time to work on this project. You have 45 minutes to finish 500 words. Do it. And then I go do the 45 minutes. Then I take a walk, because a big part of procrastination for me is not getting enough exercise, not eating right, not sleeping right, and stuff like that, which leads to writer's block, which is a form of procrastination, really. And so by having this schedule that I have to follow to meet my goals and my clients' goals, I find that works very well for keeping me on track. But the caveat is, I have to listen to those calendar notifications that tell me it's time to get to work on Joe's book, or it's time to take a walk, or it's time to do something. I get a lot of notifications during the day. It can be really annoying, but it keeps me on track.
No, that's really interesting, and it's interesting that you brought up the fact that not getting enough sleep, not getting enough exercise, not eating properly leads to writer block. Do you think mainly that's because of a kind of a lack of energy, or is it more a lack of comfort?
A little of both. It leads to, first of all, your attention is going now to your body. Your body doesn't have the energy that it needs. You're probably falling asleep. Maybe you got some aches and pains that are caused by not eating right, and so forth. And this gives you excuses. Oh, I don't feel good now, so I'll put it off until tomorrow when I feel better. You're not fixing your diet and stuff, so you're going to feel the same way. So it gives you more things to create an excuse about.
And just focusing on the book aspect and getting a book written, there's a couple of things I want to get into here, but I guess the first and foremost one is, And I know many of us procrastinate on writing a book. I mean, I know I've done it, but what makes having a book a really good goal to have and to get that sort of out there?
Well, first of all, many people have a legacy they want to leave. Say somebody who's in their 60s or 70s, they've had a vast amount of experience of their life. They've maybe been a soldier in a war, or maybe they worked in a tough management role, or even somebody who's been in an assembly line or something. They have a lot of knowledge that would be lost if they didn't write it down in the form of a book. Their children will appreciate it because they'll get to know about their father, mother, whoever. That's on one side. And then on the other side, if you're a business person, having a book increases the respect that others show you. It gives you credibility. It shows off your expertise. I had one client who used their book that I wrote, my name is not on it though, to get $30 million in venture capital. Just because he had a book, he used that as credibility. I have had others who've done TED Talks. I've had some who get on the speaking circuit. Those tend to pay $5,000 to $10,000 each or more if you get in the keynote speaking. The whole book gives you a leg up on your competition. A coach, for example, should always have a book, because even if it's a short one, it talks about their coaching methods, it talks about their successes, their failures, their story, how they got there, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just gold for promotional things. But really, in business, what a book really becomes is the foundation of your marketing. So your marketing is based on your book. Consider it's 100 to 300 pages of content that's already written. So you take it out, take a chapter out, you turn it into some speaking notes, you got a speech. Take another chapter out, turn it into a press release, you got a press release. Take another chapter out, it becomes a blog, or maybe a series of blogs if the chapter's long enough. So you've got this gold mine of content that's all ready to go. So you don't have to think about it anymore. And you've got customers. You can just sign the book and hand it to them. They always appreciate it. You can go to a speaking engagement. You can hand out signed copies to all the people who are there. It's better than a business card because people don't tend to throw away books. I can go on and on and on until your audience falls asleep about how many reasons why you want to write a book. That they're innumerable.
No, thank you. Thank you for saying all that, because one of the things I think, and I'm sure that you can agree, is that sometimes one of the biggest reasons we procrastinate on things is we don't really see the value in them sometimes. So by explaining it, and you've given out many different reasons for having a book that would make it important for a business owner. One of the biggest pains, obviously, for many business owners is content. So if they have that book, they can repurpose. Networking. I know that actually there was a method somebody used when you mentioned that they use books instead of business cards. There was something called book bombing. I hope this episode doesn't get scrapped because of the word bombing. That's what it's called in the context that they would get about 500 of they'd self-publish on Amazon or something, and then they would literally bomb their book into bookstores without even telling like the store owners they were there, and they would like almost like a geocaching, I guess. Do you think that is an effective way? I've never really looked into how effective it might be. Have you ever heard of doing that? Or
I have not heard of that method. It would actually be fairly hard to get a book on the shelf at a bookstore. They do inventories and things all the time, but getting books into a bookstore is a very viable method for promotion if it reaches your audience. Getting books into libraries is a good method. Getting books into the hands of people who want to find out about your service is a great method, however you use to get to them. I use the example of the speaking engagement. You order a couple boxes of books, 200 copies. You get them at cost because you're self-publishing, and have them meet you at the hotel, and then you just start giving them out and sign them. Probably cost you $3 a book. That's dirt cheap for a lead. Leads can cost hundreds of dollars. And you just got somebody who's definitely going to look at that book in the future, put it on their desk, especially if it has a nice, attractive cover. They'll probably brag about how they met you, and you got your signed signature. And they'll probably even call you back and maybe even buy your services sometime in the future. I would say the book Forbidden Word might be a good way to get books into the hands of your readers or your customers, if that's where they find out their information.
Okay, so we have those five, well, more than five things, but we have that it builds authority. It's good as a legacy. It's good for content, and it can be segued into other things. Now we're talking about a pretty big investment in either in time or money, right? Because there's always that offset, right? I mean, you just mentioned some of those payoffs there, where somebody raised, you said 30 million in venture capital.
That's correct. That's what he told me. Yes.
Wow, I think I need 10 books then. I'm good.
Well, he had a whole prospectus behind it, of course, but the book was the basis of his. He was able to demonstrate his competence at that using the book. So it served as evidence that he knew what he was talking about.
Gotcha. And so when we're talking about like even marketing a book, you mentioned that you had to overcome some being an introvert, like marketing as an introvert, right? Could you go into a little bit about that? How do you go about that? And does a book help in those situations?
Well, before I answer that question, let me back up a little bit and give you some backstory. I was a painfully introverted, shy person back in my 30s and before. Just, I wouldn't be able to do this. You couldn't get me on stage. And then at some point, after my wife passed away, I decided I was going to fight the grief and the introversion, or the shyness, not the introversion, but the shyness, by going out and photographing. So I went out there and photographed people, and I used the camera as a way to talk to them. And that enabled me to talk to people. And after 1,200 photo shoots, I was finally able to move the camera to the side and talk to people like I'm talking to you without being super shy. It took that much effort to become not shy. I was really, 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 really shy. As far as that, it is essential not to be shy if you're going to market yourself in any form, because you have to put yourself or your brand out there. You have to talk about yourself. I'm talking about more of a personal brand, or say a small business. You have to put yourself out there. You have to talk about yourself, your achievements, your life story, whatever it is. And that's all stuff that shyness gets in the way of. So introversion doesn't necessarily, I mean, I'm still an introvert. I work from home in my office all day long. But I'm with my cat. But, I can talk to people, and I can do shows like this, and I can get out there and market. And marketing is putting out your message so that other people can understand it. That's one definition. My definition of it. You got to get your message out there. My brand basically is, I'm a ghostwriter, and if you want a good book, you're going to come to me. Simple. Well, if you're shy, you can't say that, because you have trouble even telling anybody that. And if you're a photographer, you're going to have trouble photographing people. And if you're in any business, even if you're an employee, you're probably not going to get the raises that you think you deserve because you're shy and you're not creating those networking connections. I'm building a big network now of people that I can help and that can help me. Couldn't do that if I was shy. So overcoming the shyness was a big part of being able to get out there and promote myself. And I would recommend that everybody find a way to break shyness. You don't have to break being an introvert, but break the shy. Be able to talk to people. Probably they're not serial killers. Probably they're not going to hurt you. It's scary though. It is really scary. When I know how scary it is from personal experience.
Thank you for sharing that. And I guess it's just another reason to have a book, right? Because it's another, I guess, for lack of a really overused example, like another feather in your cap, so to speak. So to something that can do the talking for you, right?
Correct. Your book is a way to talk for you, and it explains all of your, depending on the book, it explains your core beliefs, your strengths, why, your story, your expertise. I'm talking more about a business type book here. Your legacy, what you want to accomplish, what your customers will get from you, examples, testimonials, anything you want to put in there, you can put in your book. It's your book. And me as a ghostwriter, my job is to help you put those in a logical order and in a way so that it has the maximum impact. And what I do that's different from other ghostwriters, and of course AI, is I try and put your heart and your soul into the words. I do some interviews up front, lots of them, because I want to get to the bottom of who you are and what you're trying to achieve, and who your audience is and what they're trying to achieve, and make those merge in the middle so that your book resonates with them. And you look at your book and you say, yeah, that's me. That's what I want to say. And that's my message. And that's basically the heart of me. That's my goal. So I probably spend a little more time on it than other ghostwriters and other people.
Okay. And you actually touched on something there, and something that was a cause for maybe procrastination for some people. And when it comes to writing a book or getting a book written, is what the heck do I put in there? Because I mean, there are some things you probably wouldn't want to put in a book, and it really depends. So let's say for a business type book, if you're a business owner, you're a coach, you're a consultant, whatever the case may be, would a better kind of book be more of almost like a memoir style, or would it be more of a technical guide? What's the balance there?
Well, there could be anything, but one of my typical things is, let's say I've got somebody who's an expert in AI. Well, they might have difficulty communicating all of the stuff about AI to a business person. I had this, for instance, back when I was at Trader Joe's. I do remember going into a meeting. I was trying to pitch, a multi-million-dollar project, and I started talking about it with my flip charts and diagrams and things. And the CEO turned to my boss and said, "Get him out of the room." And I was like, "Huh?" And he said, "You're speaking gobbledygook. I have no idea what you're saying." So I got a big lesson in humility then. And I got a big lesson in, I need to speak those people's languages. And that's what we do in a book. Who's your audience? We're going to speak their language. So for a business person, we're not going to talk about all of the bits and bytes and how everything works in AI. What we're going to talk about is, what's the return on investment? What are the dangers? What are the ethics of it? What kind of security do you need to have in place? Why do you need to have the security? All the stuff that a business person would find appropriate. So what we're going to do is tailor that book to meet your audience, plus to meet your goals. So it's both, like I said earlier. So it's very important. Yeah, we want to get your message out there, but we want to get it out there in a language that the people you're trying to talk to understand. Sitting down and writing a technical manual about AI, if your target audience is not AI engineers, it isn't going to do you any good. And that's the problem. That's one of the problems with you writing your own book, is you're going to have a really hard time translating that into who your target audience is, if you can even figure out who your target audience is and what they want. That's why I can help with that. We do that at the beginning. Who's your target audience? Why do they care? What do they get out of it? What's in it for them? Now, what do you want with all those questions? And then how do we merge the two? You're an AI person. You want people to be buying your AI product. Great. Why does the customer want that? What do they get out of it? If your target audience is investors, we want to find out what those investors want. We may even interview a few to find out what they want. We may look at surveys. We may look at all kinds of things. So we talk in the right language. And it's not like some foreign language. Everybody has sub-languages. I mean, you go to church, you have a sub-language. It's that church of that religion. You go to an engineering conference, they have a sub-language. You talk to a medical person, oh boy, do they have a sub-language. And I've written a few medical books, and those are tough because they have, and I'm a technical guy, but they have the whole language all their own. That's why I usually don't understand what my doctor says. So you got to break through that barrier too.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Or do you think there would be any kind of reason or any kind of, maybe the right word is niche, where a book wouldn't help?
If it's not aimed at the right people, that's the big thing. I mean, besides the usual technical problems of you didn't grammar check it, you didn't spell check it and stuff like that. If it's not aimed correctly. So if you're, like I was just saying, if you're an engineer and you're writing for, you want people who are your equivalent of your bosses to understand what you do, but you write it like you're an engineer, your boss probably isn't going to understand that unless he's an engineer. Most bosses are not going to be, they hire you because they don't want to know that stuff. They hire you so that you can do it. So they're not going to know how your engineering stuff works. I mean, I used to program computers in their own language. It's called assembly language. My boss never learned that stuff. So me talking to him in that language isn't going to help me at all. And I'm writing a book on it. I mean, I probably wouldn't be able to get my mom to buy one, much less put it, probably I'd have one on my coffee table. But writing a book if it was aimed at my mom in her language, and then that book would be useful. So you don't want to waste your time writing a book that's not going to be useful to your audience. And a legacy book's the same way. You've got a legacy. You were, say, a Vietnam vet, and you want to talk all about stuff you went through. Well, you need to talk about it in such a way that your audience, your grandchildren, children, whatever, future offspring, understand what you went through. And that can be hard. They don't know all the military terms. They don't know all the guns and weapons and things. They don't know all this stuff. And you basically have to translate it into that stuff, into something they do understand. And that's one thing that separates say a bestseller from a not bestseller. You're not talking the right language.
No, that's a very good point. I mean, we need to be able to speak the same language, or be on the same level as our target audience and who we want to give that message to in the book. I mean, I can think of quite a few books where the message was lost in some of the language that it was using. It doesn't mean the book was bad, but sometimes it just weaved in and out in different places. What would you say is more important? I wish I could remember the original thing here. Is the content of the book more important, or is the title more important?
That's a tough question. I mean, obviously the content is critical. Because people buy a book based on the title and the cover. They really do buy based on the cover. So I always have to suppress a scream when somebody tells me, "Oh yeah, I just paid these many dollars to get a book written by a ghostwriter, but I went ahead and did my cover in Canva." You shouldn't have done that. Well, it saved me a bunch of money. You just basically said your book's not going to sell, period. So, spend the extra dollars and hire a book cover artist. But the content you can't have a book without content. So it's obviously more important than the title. But having a good title can make the difference between whether a book is picked up by readers or not. So if your title is just, AI, that doesn't tell me anything. But if your title is something like, I made $1 million at AI, I'm just making that up. That might have a little more, oh, okay, $1 million. I'd like to make $1 million too. How you can make $1 million at AI. Okay, I've got even a little more interest. How I made $1 million at AI and I could prove it. More interested. So, and I'm just making those up. I'm sure a marketer could rip those to shreds, but you want to have the who's your audience, and you have to differentiate yourself from all the other books on the same subject. 10,000 books a day are published on Amazon. So how is your book going to stand out against all those books? And that's one thing a title and a cover is intended to do. Make it stand out so that somebody at least looks inside or folds the book flap and takes a look and then says, "Oh yeah, this sounds interesting." Then they look at the introduction, read the first 2 paragraphs and go, "Yeah, this catches my interest. I'm going to go buy it." And it's usually about like that. That's how people buy books. Maybe read the back flap, maybe read the first chapter while they're sitting in the bookstore. It's always going to be up front. I usually read the end.
You said something very interesting there, and I'll have to be honest with you. It was something that crossed my mind before I released one of my books. Is there's 10,000 books released every day on Amazon. It seems very overwhelming. How do you propose that people stand out? I mean, you said you have a good cover, you have a catchy title. Obviously, your content needs to be good, which you've got covered. Do you think that it's necessary to launch, fairly significant or at least some form of an ad campaign with your book launch, or is it just fine to launch it and then do like a grassroots initiative local?
I am glad you asked that question. It's a very good question. You definitely want to have a campaign of some sort when you release your book, whether it's the science fiction book you've been working on for the last 5 years, it's been your dream, whether it's your business book, whether it's your medical book, whatever book it is. What I recommend you do is, say you hire me, say it takes 8 months to write the book. Then during that 8 months, starting from the first day, we'll start doing, say, weekly posts to whatever social media you like. Could be video, could be something. I won't do that's not what I do, but I will coach you on how to do them and what to do. You start building that buzz. You start building that following. You get people to say, "Oh boy, this book's coming." And you're going to talk about the book, the process of you writing that book. So what you're going through to write that book, with some of the ideas you got while writing that book. "Oh my God, I was writing this chapter and I realized I've been doing it wrong," or "I realized that I've been doing it right," or "This guy Joe that I met when I was in kindergarten, he told me this and that just suddenly clicked." Come up with these kind of things, epiphanies and quotes and short videos and short TikToks and all that kind of stuff, and start putting it out there during this whole time while you're writing the book, because otherwise it's a waste of time. Your goal is to get several thousand people, as many as you can, interested, engaged in that book. Create a Facebook group and start pouring people into that group and get them all helping you, get them excited about the book. When the book's finally launched, schedule a book launch party, whether it's physical, virtual, or both. And virtual's pretty simple to do. Spend the extra dollars and hire a host who has a good speaking voice. I know somebody who was an old radio personality in the 90s and early 2000s. He's got a great voice. Kind of reminds me of some of the great, I'll remember his name, but some of the great radio people. He's kind of incredible voice, and have them be the host and run the show so you don't have to. Make it 4 hours long so it can be covered by both hosts. Get a few other authors or personalities on there, give them a few minutes to talk, give away a couple prizes, sign books, and you got yourself a launch party. Have people come in, maybe use Zoom, probably only need a 100-person license. That's typical Zoom, and run it. Maybe run it again, get people to buy that book. And then, of course, you have the revision. So you run another launch party. And then you have the workbook that you want to launch. You have another launch party. And the idea is you're getting people engaged for this book. And then as far as paid ads, don't do those unless you are an expert or you hire somebody who's an expert, because I have wasted so much money on paid ads that it would blow me away if I looked at it. Before I finally got smart and decided not to do it because I don't know how to do it. That is an important thing to do when you want to fight procrastination. I'm going to segue back to that. You want to fight procrastination. There are a lot of reasons why I procrastinate. I'll speak for myself. There's a part of what I'm procrastinating on that I don't know how to do, one of which is marketing. So I stop there and I go, okay, I'll figure out marketing tomorrow. Or marketing's too hard. Outsource it. Find somebody to do it for you. If you don't know how to book market, hire somebody. You can find people on sites like Fiverr who will do that stuff for you, or you can find experts who will do it for you on a barter basis. Maybe they're writing a book and they need somebody to beta read it for you. Beta reading means you get people to read the copies and give you comments. You can work out all kinds of things to get around that procrastination because you don't know how to do something. Find somebody who does. Hire a coach. Hire a marketer. Go to some of the training. There's all kinds of free training on the internet. It's one of the wonders of the internet. But find out that's a big reason for procrastination. You like how I brought that back?
No, yeah. I like how you brought that back. It actually gets into another reason for procrastination. We sort of touched on it a little bit at the beginning of the show about the investment. And I found that this is probably a good time to bring it up because we're talking about paid ads and marketing and all these extra costs. And I'm sure our listeners are saying, oh my God, there's X dollars for this, X dollars for that. And then we swing back. Oh, wait, that guy got $30 million in funding, but he had a prospectus and he had other things. So my question to you, and I'm sure our listeners would like to know, in your experience, and again, everything's going to be different and it's based on perspective and your purpose, but how realistic is it to call the book an investment and expect for book sales to be break even? I mean, would that be more the goal? If you're really going for a goal, would it be to break even and then sort of have that offset for the authority? Or would you be more inclined to go full out and try to milk that book for all it's worth, so to speak?
The key is to understand what your goal is for the book. So if your goal is to make book sales and make more money than you spent, then that's where your marketing will go. And you're going to have to spend some money marketing it. That's not an easy thing to do, and you're going to need to hire an expert unless you're an expert already at it. And if you're a writer, you're probably not an expert at it. Let's say you write the book yourself. If your goal is to reinforce your coaching business and that's your brand, then your ROI, your return on investment, comes from how many leads you convert based on your book. Conversion meaning that you get the lead and you make money at it. They wind up being paying customers. So you have to have the goal set for any kind of thing, but books are very important. What is the goal for the book? Is your goal for the book to get venture capital? First of all, we're going to aim it towards that. And it makes an entirely different book than if your goal is to sell copies. It's going to be different. It's going to have a different ending. It's going to have different supporting evidence through there. It's going to be a very different book. And we need to know that up front. And if your book goal is to sell copies, it's going to be more aimed at lay people who are not experts necessarily, especially if your goal is to get into airports and things, then it's going to be very, very aimed at normal lay people who go through the airports. Whereas if your goal is, like I said, to get venture cap, that's financial people. They want to know the finances. They want you to prove that it's worked before. They want you to give a lot of other information that supports your case. Somebody who buys a coaching books want to know, how does this work before? How does it work for me? What is your process? Why did you do it? What's your success? So the goal is what defines the marketing and where you're going to put the money for your marketing. Simple as that. If your goal is just to do a legacy book for your grandchildren, you don't need any marketing, except for maybe Christmas cards.
No, but you bring up a very interesting point. And I'm sure that this must be a point of frustration for you sometimes with your clients is, how do you get them to settle on what the goal is for the book? I mean, do you ever get clients where they don't know? Like maybe I want to write a book and I come to you and say, hey, I want you to write the book. Do you ever have to pull teeth sometimes, so to speak?
Most of the time. Sometimes they come to me and say, my goal is blah. Just finished up with a client. He had this goal. He wanted to achieve it. He finished the book, and now he's in the marketing phase, and he's doing the marketing. He's very determined. I'm sure he's going to get what he wants. Sometimes they come to me and say, I know I want a book, and it's about this subject, but I'm not sure where to go with after that. And that's where we spend an hour on the phone and figure that out. And then sometimes I'll even say, okay, let's do a short engagement, 10 hours of engagement, and let's brainstorm your goal. And then that's when the free consultation goes over to a short engagement, a short, small investment to brainstorm it, spend a few hours brainstorming it, coming up with that idea, and then narrowing it to a pinpoint as exactly what their idea is, exactly who it's for, why they want to do it, what they want to gain from it. That's the output from that. Usually that's done as part of the engagement, but sometimes it's done as a separate engagement.
Just talking about different clients and their ideas. What do you think is the strangest idea for a book that you've ever come across?
Oh, some of them are very strange. I had one person come in. I wound up not doing the book because he was he was what would you call it? He was a confidential informant for some group. I think it was the FBI or something. And he went into the mafia and he wanted to name names and expose people and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and he offered me a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. I was beginning to, so it was a lot of money. And I said, I can't spend that money if I have a bullet in my head. And he said, I'll give you more. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. So that one was kind of strange. I don't know why he would want to do that. I've run into people who want to do revenge memoirs where they say they're in a nasty divorce. And they want to get revenge on their husband, wife, spouse, business partner, stuff like that. I don't do those as a rule, partially for legal reasons and partially because they're just no fun. You're getting caught in the middle of all of their stuff. I don't do those. And then I didn't really answer your question there, but I do get a lot of strange requests for books. The strangest thing is when they come to me and they say, oh yeah, I want a 100,000 word book. That's about 400 pages. And I need it done in 2 weeks. And so you do it for like $500? It's like, no, don't know what to say to that. It's like, this is my living. This is what I do. I mean, I don't even know what to say to those kind of things.
No, I understand that. Those are really, some of those are definitely interesting, especially the revenge ones or the mafia one. I'm not sure how they would think that's a good idea, but it takes all kinds, right? What would you say is your best or your kind of your ideal client, your sweet spot?
One thing I demand, and I literally make sure of, is that me and the client are going to have a good relationship. Writing a book is not a lot of ghostwriters do this where they just do a couple interviews, they stop talking to the client, then they write the book and then they hand it over and they're done. Mine is more of collaborative. We're working together on the book and it's a relationship. And the last thing I want to be is in a toxic relationship with anyone. So, and I tell the client the same thing, pre-client, when we're just starting. I said, we want to make sure that we can work well together. If you don't think you can work with me, we shouldn't be doing business together. So my ideal client is somebody who's easy to work with, knows what the goals are, understands the process, and acts like an adult. Let me put it that way. Both adults. I'm an adult. And if you, the client, comes to me and says, here's the manuscript and here's a chapter, and I don't like this paragraph and the chapter comes back basically bloody with changes, I'm fine with that. That's part of the process. I'm not going to get all hurt because, no, you made comments on my sacred text. It's a book. He's not commenting on me, and I'm an adult. We can have an adult level conversation, and you can critique what I've written. I don't want toxicities when they're attacking me. critique is when they're, sure, attack the book, the stuff that I want. I want you to have the best possible book that you can have. If you don't like that paragraph or that chapter or whatever, let's fix it. By all means, tell me what's wrong with it so I can fix it. So, that's, and of course, an interesting subject, something that's fascinating, something that's has a real impact. Let me tell you the story of Doris. Doris came to me, and a great lady. She was in her late 70s. For her entire life, she'd recorded all of her dreams, handwritten notes, when she woke up every single morning. And she handed me this sheaf of notebooks of things. I think it was several boxes of paper, and said, I want you to turn this into a novel. I was like, okay, sure. And I read through all of, as much as I read through enough to get the gist of what she wanted, because there was no way I was going to read through thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of very ineligible notes. But I got enough. And I told her what I got. She said, sure, go ahead. We wrote a pretty good novel. And I remember when I finally handed it to her, the finished copy, which her sister acted as the editor for, so we polished it up pretty good. And she said, I'll never forget the look on her face. She said, this feels almost as good as when I held my newborn daughter in my arms for the first time.
It's quite a compliment.
That was a very powerful statement. I was like, okay, don't know what to make of that, but cool. That was my favorite project. She's my favorite customer for a lot of reasons. She was a great person. She got a good book and had a great time writing it. And there were some things that she was like, I want it this way. It's like, okay. Then there were other things where she said, I don't care. We created it was about two gators walking through swamps in Florida and having magical adventures. Kind of fun.
Well, I'm surprised she had the same, it sounds like she had the same sort of motif in her dream for quite a long time. And, I don't think I've ever managed to do that. That sounds like it deserved to be in a book.
It is a great book, and it definitely deserved to be in a book. It was her legacy, and it's something she wanted for many, many, many decades, and she finally got it. And it was great being part of that. It's great being part of that. Definitely wasn't my highest paying project, not by even a long shot, but it was definitely one of the most fulfilling.
I love that. I love, tying it back to, tying it to something other than the money, because sometimes it's not even really about the money. This has been a great conversation, Richard. I really loved it. We are coming up pretty close to the time. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked, but I didn't ask, or anything that we didn't cover that you feel we should have covered?
No, I think we did a pretty thorough job. All I would say is if you have a goal, whatever your goal is, and in my case, if you have a goal of writing a book, get rid of all of the stops, stop procrastinating. You don't need to, one way to procrastinate is to try and figure out why you're procrastinating. Stop doing that. Just do it. You don't have to figure out why you're procrastinating. Do it. And sometimes doing it is just spending 5 minutes on it, and then 10 minutes, and then 20 minutes. But if you have a goal, then take steps to get there, and then finally finish it and do it. You'll feel a lot better about yourself. And then you can start on the next goal, and then the next one, and the next one. And finally, you'll be able to just say, okay, I can do goals now. Boom, 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 boom. And you're going to find you're a lot happier than with all these unfinished goals. Which reminds me, one of my goals is going to the ice hotel in Sweden. I probably should start working on that one.
But you'll work on it next week?
Probably next month.
Well, Richard, it's been a real pleasure. Just before we go, what is the best way for our audience to reach out and, contact you in case they have questions or maybe they're going to finally get that book written?
Well, they can go to writingking.com, or they can go to ghostwriting.guru. Either site, there's links on there to set up an appointment. And if you want to talk about this or any other topic, I'll just set up a meeting and we'll have a chat. And I will, if you want a book, I'll help you write that book. But at least let's start talking about it. Don't procrastinate by thinking it's going to be too expensive or it's going to take too much time or you don't know how to do it or whatever your excuses are. Just make the appointment. It's not going to hurt making the appointment. Worst that's going to happen is we're going to spend half an hour and have a great time talking. And that's not a bad time. I'm a pretty good talker, as you can tell.
Well, thank you for that. And, again, to our listeners, don't worry about grabbing a pen or a paper, trying to rewind and get that. We are going to have it in the show notes, so it's going to be easy for you to find. And once again, Richard, thank you so much for being on the show. And to all our listeners, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration today, maybe just go out and try to be that motivation or inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.
Thank you very much.